you looking to increase your FPS inside of Call of Duty Warzone? If so, this video is for you. My name is Josh Barracks, and today we're going to be going over my graphics settings inside of Call of Duty and outside that boosted my frame rate from 150 to 220. It's a 70 FPS boost with these settings, okay guys? So we're gonna go over all of that, as well as audio settings, best controller settings, and even some things you can do outside of the game to increase that FPS as well. So we got a lot to cover, okay? Before we get started with that, I want to do a big shout out to our Noti gang. If you guys want to be featured in the next Noti gang shout out, make sure to like the video, subscribe, comment Noti gang below, and ring the bell. Okay guys, before we even launch Call of Duty, there's things we can do to increase our FPS. So we're going to start by right-clicking our display and clicking NVIDIA control panel. It's going to pull up the NVIDIA list. With the left-hand side, there's going to be a bar. You're going to select Manage 3D Settings. Now, all of these settings are more or less optimized. You don't have to change much, but two things you do want to change are Power Management Mode, which is preset to Optimal Power. We're going to switch that to Prefer Maximum Performance. And then the second one is Texture Filtering Quality. We go from the preset quality to high performance. Now what this does is it prioritizes the FPS and performance of your game over, say, the quality of the graphics inside of the game at any given moment. Okay, so these two settings should help you guys out a lot. The next thing I would recommend outside of Call of Duty is we go ahead and open up Google Chrome if you use Google Chrome. Okay, this is a big one, guys, so pay attention here. We're gonna click on these little three dots up at the right hand corner, go into Settings, and then inside of Settings on the left hand side, click Advanced, and then you're going to go to System. And then you see these two things right here. This continue running background apps when Google Chrome is closed. This is going to preset to be checked, as well as use hardware acceleration when available. This is going to be checked. Now, why these two are so important, especially the top one, is that even after you close out of Google Chrome, it'll keep different background apps running, and it'll be decreasing the performance while you're in game, even though you don't have a window open. So it's so important that you keep this one unchecked. And if God forbid you actually have a Google Chrome tab open, which I don't recommend in Warzone, this hardware acceleration will prioritize and send more resources to the Google Chrome tab instead of the game. So make sure that you have both of these unchecked inside of your settings. Now that we have our settings outside of the game set up, let's take a look at the settings inside of Call of Duty Warzone that I use to boost my frame rate from 150 to 220, a 70 frame rate boost. Okay, so let's go over to options, and first up, with our display mode, I had this set to full screen borderless for so long because I have a bunch of different monitors. Switching over to full screen has helped a lot with the frame rate. It prioritizes this one monitor's FPS over anything else. So highly recommend using full screen. Display monitor, I just have it set to my primary. Display adapter is my graphics card. Screen refresh rate, this should be generally pretty locked. I mean, it's just your, the maximum refresh rate of your monitor. Render resolution, I always recommend 100. There's some people out there that say to try the 121. I think 100 is fine. It's great, and I recommend it highly. Disable dynamic resolution. For aspect ratio, 16:9 is going to be the case 99% of the time, so make sure you have that. Turn off VSync. Now this can correct some screen tearing and stuff, but the vast majority of players are not going to want to use this. It's counterintuitive, and it hurts your FPS big time. Okay, custom frame rate limit, I do maximum at 300 for my gameplay. For menu and out of focus, I do 60 each, so that my graphics card isn't overworking while outside of the actual game play itself. For brightness, this matters per monitor, but basically just follow the prompts here and make sure that Warzone in the middle is barely visible. Display gamma's preset at 2.2 is fine. I have NVIDIA highlights disabled and NVIDIA reflex low latency enabled plus boosts. All right, guys, now that we've looked at the display tab, let's move on over to quality. This is right next to that display tab we just went over. First up, FOV. I have mine set to 105. It's a personal preference. You can go to 120. I think some people even say the performance is better on 120. I like it at 105. Camera movement, I have mine at least 50%. Streaming quality, mine's at low. Texture resolution, I have it at normal. Now, you could go low if you're struggling, especially if you have a lower end graphics card, but I have a lot of room, as you can see my VRAM usage here. And so even though I could set it to low, but I'm still getting frame rates that's higher than my refresh rate on my monitor. So I can still see the same FPS visually, but with texture resolution to normal, I can see a greater quality of the textures that are rendering. So I use normal. If you're having trouble, like great trouble with your FPS, I do recommend very low or even low, okay? Texture filter anthropic, I just keep this a low. Particle quality, this seems counterintuitive, but it's actually true. You gain FPS with having your particle quality high, so make sure you have that set to high. Bullets, impacts, and spray, I have that disabled. Tessellation, I keep mine at near. Some people recommend disabling this. I like it near personally. It doesn't put too much stress on it, and it's just better overall in my opinion. Dismemberment, gore effects, disable this. On-demand streaming, texture streaming, I have this disabled. Filmatic strength, I have mine to 0. Some people recommend putting this to 1. I like the way the game looks at 0 personally. Film grain is 0 always. NVIDIA DLSS, I would not recommend ever enabling this. This is just, they're patching this. They're trying to work this out. It's just not in a good state of the game currently. I would have this disabled. Anti-aliasing, now this again comes down to personal preference. If you have no frames to give and you just need to boost those frames, I do recommend turning this off. But again, if you have a little bit of headspace and you're going over your screen's refresh rate, I would recommend doing the 1x or even the 2x if you just want to kind of bump up the quality of the textures that you're seeing. Depth of field, disable this. This is just general gameplay, honestly. World motion blur disable and weapon motion blur disable. I can't believe the amount of people who actually have this enabled. You guys are warriors. I don't know how you do it. Shadow map resolution, let's turn this to low. The shadows on the map will drastically reduce your frame, so this is a very important setting. Make sure this is low. Cache spot shadows and sun shadows, you're going to enable this. Again, counterintuitive. You think that enabling something would decrease FPS. This is not the case. This is very important that you enable both of these. Particle lighting, we're going to put that at low. It does affect FPS. Direct ray tracing, I don't know who out there could possibly run direct ray tracing. It is unbelievably FPS taxing. I think I lost about 35 to 40 frames turning this on. It's just for the casual gamer, it's really not going to be viable at all, so make sure that's disabled. Ambient inclusion, a lot of people have this disabled completely, and that probably is the best for performance. I like the way the game looks at static objects. Again, I have a little bit more headspace, so if you're looking for just maximization, disable that. And then finally, screen space reflection, I have disabled. Now that we have our general graphic settings out of the way and we're kind of ready to get those boosted FPS in the game, now let's take a look at how I optimize the gameplay itself to play the best. Now, audio settings I think are very important in this game. There's not a lot to look at here, but things to look at are important. The very first one is the most important. Audio mix boost low. Why boost low? Because you can hear footsteps better. It puts an emphasis on the bass, and that is the portion of the audio that your footsteps, or that footsteps in general, come through. So boost low, you're going to be able to hear more footsteps. And then master volume is all personal preference. The general rule of thumb is as loud as possible without being in pain, which sounds ridiculous because we're playing a video game, but the louder it is, the more you're going to hear, and the more you're going to hear, the better you're going to hear players coming at you, especially with boost low. Okay, so it's kind of silly, but it is true. Of course, turn that music off. You don't need it if you're just looking to, perform. And then everything else is more or less personal preference. There's nothing here that impacts FPS in any kind of way. It's all just kind of based on your own setup. So just really the most two important ones are the audio mix being a boost low and master volume at just as loud as possible without hurting. Finally, guys, let's take a look at the controller settings I use for Warzone. It should be noted that I use a PowerA Fusion Pro 2 Xbox custom controller with the 4 paddles in the back I use for jumping and sliding, and that's pretty much it. I'm a big fan of these controllers, and I should have a link for you guys to look at them. They're a lot less expensive than some of your scuffs and all that. The PowerA controller is definitely for your casual gamer, and I love it, and it's like increased my movement and everything. Okay, but with that being said, our BR button layout is tactical. I'm thinking about switching this now that I have paddles for sliding, but what it did is it swapped melee and slide so that I could use the right stick to slide. But again, personal preference, not really a big thing. I use paddles now. Stick layout preset, I just keep that a default. Invert vertical look, I disable that. Now this left stick and the right stick dead zone, what is this? This is like, as your controller gets older, or even some custom controllers out of the box, the right stick will sway one way or the other. If you don't touch it, your character will look away or move on its own. To counter that, the dead zone basically corrects that. So if it's swaying a little bit to the right, the dead zone has the stick preset over to the left, so it counteracts, and then your stick is in the middle. Does that make sense? That's what it does. So basically all you need to know is that if your character's moving on its own, you can use the dead zone settings to stop him from doing so, and just play around with that. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below. Maybe I can help you guys out. Okay, I just keep these max dead zone right here. I keep these standard. I did -1 here to help my right stick out, like I said, just not moving on its own. I use 6.6 sensitivity. I just think for controller, you'll see even a lot of pros, they swear by 6.6. I swear by 6.6. It feels very, very good. I use a custom sensitivity per zoom. You guys can take a look at this and screenshot if you would like. I like the 0.75 ADS multiplier, so the ADS slows down when I ADS on pretty much like low zoom guns. It helps me keep my aim steady. Now as I get better with aim, maybe I'll up that sensitivity closer to 1, but for now, especially somebody who just switched like a month ago, this has helped me a lot. So 0.75 custom ADS zoom, then I keep everything else 1 down here. Aim response curve, this is the big one, guys. You're going to want to go dynamic, okay? Without getting too technical or fancy or anything like that, dynamic is just the most, it's going to keep you the most consistent and keep you the most accurate. Definitely recommend aim response curve. Disable controller vibration, of course you don't need that. Standard aim assist is fine. Don't overthink this. Don't think that precision is going to help you guys. It basically just means like targets farther away or closer, you're going to have sticky or less sticky aim. I like standard. It's just consistent across the board, and it's going to be better for just being consistent. I don't know how else to say that. Scale aim assist with FOV, disable that. It's a mess. Don't do it. Everything else here is pretty self-explanatory. You can take a screenshot if you would like. Make sure to change this contextual tap, guys. This is one of the first settings you should do when you set up Call of Duty Warzone. It's to set up contextual tap. This means you don't have to hold down X to open every crate, okay? You're going to be super slow at picking up loot and just looting in general if you don't have contextual tap on. This is a really good one to have enabled, so as soon as you run out of ammo, you just switch your weapons. Armor plate, apply all. Thank God they added this. You don't have to keep holding down the Y button or whatever whenever you're looking to put on a plate. Make sure to have apply alls on this so you can do it one time, and then you can just start sprinting and doing other stuff, jumping while you're plating, okay? Slide behavior, have mind to tap. Now, this is a big one too. This is probably the second big one. Automatic tack sprint, guys. Please have this on. Now, does this mean you can just walk around and hip fire shotgun? No, you can't do that. But this is going to make your movement so much easier. You're just going to save your thumbs. You're not going to be pushing down on the stick every time you go to sprint. Automatic tack sprint just means you push to the left stick up and your character takes off. It's amazing. I definitely recommend automatic tack sprint. Takes some getting used to, but once you get used to it, man, oh man, everyone uses it, okay? And then finally, parachute auto deploy. Definitely recommend disabling this so you can get really low to the ground, pull that chute, and hit the ground and save yourself some time not lingering in the air and getting fried out of the air, okay? Now, with that being said, you might look like Tim the Tap Man for a little bit until you get used to it and smacking into the ground. That's fine. It's just going to get your skill level up by getting used to kind of like strategically using your parachute instead of just letting the game do it for you, okay? That's pretty much it, guys. Those are all of my settings. If I missed anything or you think that I should have included something or if I think you got something wrong, please let me know in the comment section. This is my first settings video. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in the next video.